This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international and local. Hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether it's 95 FM, pulse95radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, even if you're watching us live on YouTube. Thank you very much for connecting. Shout out to everyone who's tuning in on my Instagram live as well at Omar Al-Duri. And the question of the day is, are we suffering from burnout, overtraining, undereating, overhydrating, or not sleeping enough? We're talking about that today. So if you're into that, you might want to stay tuned and see what's happening on the show today. Shout out to Cam as well, who's tuned in for the first time, who trains with me normally every Monday, and he's tuned in. And happy birthday to Amal as well. And so the big topic, and everyone is talking about what's happening at the moment, is Zlatan Ibrahimovic versus Lebron James. Now you're probably asking, what do these two global superstars have in common? They don't play the same sport. They're both giants in the game, one for basketball, one for football, but apparently they're going up against each other toe for toe on social media. Now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic comes out and says athletes should not use their platform for anything. Stick to sport. He made a comment about LeBron James being quite vocal about the Black Lives Matter and about inequality and etc. And LeBron responded. Now, when he responded, people then ended up saying that this was a huge social media spat between the two. So we're going to be covering that as well today. I hope you guys are enjoying it wherever you're tuned in. The massive global athlete that you think about these days, you think LeBron James, you think Zlatan Ibrahimovic, when you see them up against each other, that's really interesting. The UAE adds more gold on the cycling tour as well, so when we're talking about that in a successful campaign, and obviously in the health segment, we're discussing burnout, burning yourself out, mentally, physically, undereating, overtraining, overhydrating, not enough sleep, on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Shout out to everyone who is tuned in on the Instagram live, on TikTok, on Pulse 95 Radio, on YouTube. Thank you very much for spending your hour with me, and I promise you I'll make it worth your while. The topic of the day, are you suffering from burnout, overtraining, undereating, overhydrating, or not enough sleep? And if that's the case, what can we do to switch it up to help you get that sustainability in our goals in health and well-being? That's the first segment we're going to be talking about today. The next segment we're going to be talking about is Zlatan Ibrahimovic versus LeBron James, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Okay, people, here we go. Happy birthday to Amal, and shout out to Cam as well, who trains with me every Monday. Okay. Now, a lot of the times we associate health and fitness and well-being when it comes down to positive things. And also sometimes we get a bit excited and maybe overdo it. Now, when we overcook it, it doesn't come out the same because it's not sustainable to go that hard for that long of a period of time when it comes down to, let's say, New Year's resolution. Then it becomes after that a yearly resolution. Do we stick to that? Sometimes not. I'm guilty of that as well. But what is it that we're doing that actually hinders that? And how can we hold ourselves accountable without making drastic changes? The other question I have for you guys is, are we giving it enough time to be able to see the results? We happen to live in quite a restless society where we want instant gratification, we want instant validation, we want instant success. Now, here's the thing. When we do that, we put all that pressure which stresses us out emotionally. Now, before we even get to the physical part, we've spoken about mental fitness and emotional fitness on the show. So stressing yourself out before you even attempted to do anything physical is already the first point in where we need to address it to ourselves. Let's be honest with ourselves. Are we doing enough, or are we just over stressing, which again takes its toll on the brain, which takes its toll on the body? So that's the first thing I'll put forward. The second thing is accountability. Are we holding ourselves accountable? Now, what we might think is healthy, and if you tuned in on the show the other day, Coach Lisa was excellent. She was talking about hormones and the importance of hormones in managing yourself. And here we also linked the hormones to emotions, and it came down to stress, it came down to happiness, and then you heard all sorts of different things in that show. So make sure you check that out on YouTube, by the way, on Pulse 95 Radio. Really good show. She's a nutrition coach and a hormone specialist who discussed that. But see, that got me thinking now, when it comes down to accountability, something like a simple app, and I was talking to Cam about this earlier, could really help us with what we're trying to achieve, merely for the fact to give you an idea where we're at. Simple things like entering your food into an app where it does give you the idea of what you may have thought was healthy actually was quite calorific. And when I say that, there's a lot of calories for what you're doing, and you didn't actually feel the wholesome food or the density in the nutrition, which what makes you want more. So I'm talking about things like high fructose corn syrup, normally that we find in our sauces or in our food, that really does distort, our flow. It really does kind of, get in the way of things. So the first thing I would point out is actually jumping on an app where I use one myself, and often I turn around to Maria and I go, Maria, how much is that? And she'll tell me that's 100 grams. So all you have to do is enter it into the app. Now, yes, you might be saying, do I have to enter it every single time? I'll tell you what, it does open your eyes to a lot of things. So that's the first thing I would say. Once you start to enter the food that you're eating, you get to the end of the day and you're looking at the top right-hand corner of the screen, and on that part, it tells you whether you're over calories for your daily consumption, which it works out based on your age, weight, and height. Now, in doing so, that gives you a good idea of where you're at. Now, following that for a day or a week really makes no sense at all, because you have to give it enough time. And we spoke about it in the beginning of the segment, in giving yourself enough time to be able to hold yourself accountable, because we tend to normally give things a couple of weeks and say we're not seeing results and that's it. But see, the complexity when it comes down to your gut health and what happens in your gut, it takes months just to clear that anyway, and clear that of waste, of fungus, of things that shouldn't be there, that is stored in your gut. And so here I am now telling you, give it 6 weeks, give it a couple of months before you can even switch up your program. Now, when I was talking to someone earlier about this, he was asking me, what are you doing and what he was doing. And this is where we kind of went off on the conversation. And the first thing was accountability. So getting yourself an app that can actually put down the food that you're eating will give you a good idea of where you're at. That's the first part. The second part is monitoring your exercise. How do we monitor exercise? We tend to normally follow trends or even get caught up in doing one type of thing, which we might enjoy, and rightfully so. If you find something that works for you, keep doing it. However, when you have a heart rate monitor, and I'm not talking about the things that you just put on your wrist. Again, I've been guilty of trying all these things out, so I've kind of seen what works and what hasn't. But the reason why I didn't actually use it was because I normally wrap my hands for boxing, and in doing so, it used to get in the way. So that was pretty much a fluke that got me off, the wrist monitors, and more on the heart rate monitors when it comes down to, putting a strap around, just the diaphragm and your chest. And then from that point, being able to see what you're doing exercise-wise. So that's kind of where I went with that part. And it was very, very interesting to see now that I have an app that monitors my food and an app that monitors my exercise. Am I turning tech? I'm sure Omnia and Hani would love me talking about technology when it comes to sport. But yes, I am. I'm using the resources that we have nowadays to be able to put together something that works for me. And this is something that I want to emphasize on. What works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. You might find something very simple that works, and that is your your routine, your method, 100%. But what I'm saying here is more on the accountability factor. Have something that you can be able to track. So when you go back to it, you can see what you've done, how you've done it, where you went wrong, where you can improve, or even how great you've been doing. There's a positive spin-off to that as well. So how are you tracking it? Are you overtraining, undereating, overhydrating, or not sleeping enough? It's something that we've all fallen under, and that's why with some people saying that, they don't sleep well, that comes down to managing time as well. Maybe you're overworking, which then affects your oversleeping, which is, again, undereating or overeating even, which gets you lethargic or gets you kind of tired. And that is how this segment ends. What are you doing? Let us know. Give us your tips as well, and I'll mention them on the show. And that is the first segment on the halftime show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I, man. I'm sweating just talking about it. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. What are you doing? What's working? What could you improve on? Let me know. 4215 Ittasalat or do, or slide into my DMs at Omar Al-Duri on Instagram, and I'll be right back after this. The music today is on point. Shout out to Sama. Welcome back.
This is the halftime show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
In the blue corner, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the world global superstar from Sweden who's played everywhere in the biggest clubs, versus In the red corner, LeBron James, arguably the GOAT of basketball. Basketball fans are going to be loving this. Against each other on social media. Who are you siding with? Who would win in a fight as well? That would be pretty good, if I must say so myself. We're talking about that today. I hope you like that rocky feel that I added to that. And now we can go back to our normal beds. Okay, so at the moment now, Zlatan Ibrahimovic came out on social media and dropped a comment on LeBron James following his standing up for Black Lives Matter, inequality, and using his platform to be able to increase awareness on those topics. His comment was, stick to sport when it came down to LeBron James. LeBron James responded. All of a sudden, you've got these two titans from different worlds in the conversation. Now, what's interesting about this is you can be a sports fan. You can love these two. You can hate these two. But why should athletes not use their platform? Should athletes use their platform to raise awareness on issues outside of sport? That's the first question I'm asking. And it's because we've got two massive global superstars, credibility-wise in sport, they both have, that, let's say, the leverage, the presence, the character, the personalities to be able to, go up against each other. But what's wrong with LeBron using his platform? And at the same time, as long as, and Florian was saying this earlier, as long as it's not offensive and as long as it's positive, why should that be a problem? I use my platform here on Pulse 95 Radio, the halftime show. I use it for topics to raise awareness on mental health or mental fitness, and I bring on guests from all around the world to be able to talk about it. So why shouldn't LeBron James be able to speak about things that he believes is going to help the community, the world, or the people? And this is something where, maybe Zlatan is stirring the pot. He's always been kind of a controversial character in the way, I'd say it's soft banter. He's always said something and we've kind of always responded to what Zlatan says with a little bit of pinch of salt when it comes down to that. But tackling someone like LeBron James is huge. I really think it's something that you got to tread on thin lines with here. Almas drops me a quote from LeBron saying, "I would never shut up about things that are wrong. I preach about my people, equality, social justice, racism, systemic voter suppression, things that go in our community." And that's exactly right. Thank you for that, Almas. That's exactly right. That's why I kind of say, what's wrong with what he's doing? Is he doing something that's wrong by doing that, by speaking out, by saying those things? And here we have it, where sometimes not speaking about something is a crime in itself. When you see something that's wrong and you don't say it, as Florian said earlier, shout out to Florian from New York, that everyone has opinion nowadays. I'm okay with being able to share opinions as long as no one is offended, as long as it's not disrespectful. I think that's key. Shout out to Rawan as well, who's joined in the UAE national team baller, who's joining on Instagram Live. So what do you guys think? Is Zlatan using this as kind of just a tussle to poke at LeBron? Or is LeBron someone that you just don't mess with, basically? Not just because of what he's achieved in basketball, but the personality, the character, the weight that this person carries on his shoulder anyway, and the responsibility is something that I think is quite positive. But what do you guys think? 4215 Ittasalat or slide into my DMs at Omar Al-Duri and let me know. Zlatan versus LeBron, who wins? Is there a point in Zlatan making comments like that about LeBron, using his platform? Sometimes people have been guilty of not being able to speak about, very, very important topics. You see the anti-racism campaigns, Kick It Out, and all these kind of things that have caused quite a stir now in the world, especially people who are from an African background, like Wilfred Zaha saying, "I'm not going to take the knee," even though he's from Senegal. He's saying, "I'm not going to take the knee. What's the point? What am I doing? I'm just doing this, just for show. There's no one's doing anything about it. I'm still getting abuse on social media from all sorts of people around the world." So here's where we kind of wonder, where do we stand on this? Do we believe that there are there is a point in people still taking the knee before the game in any sport that you have, or is it just for show? Let me know. We're going to be right back after the break. And you know what? The music today is on point. Some Burna Boy, some Umi, Lotto Boys, man. I'm feeling it. Hey, enjoy this. No, you.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. Thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you for everyone who's been sending their comments through on the topics we're talking about today. And if you did just jump in the room today or just jumped on the show today and you're wondering, how can I catch the show? You've got the Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud podcasts, all available for you in the comfort of your own home. Anytime you want, you can head over there to Pulse 95 Radio and you can find us on there. Or if you prefer a visual, YouTube is there. It's ready for you. You can go to Pulse 95 Radio on YouTube and check out all our shows on there. On the first segment today, we spoke about, are you suffering from burnout? Now, when it comes down to burnout, is it overtraining, undereating, overhydrating, or not enough sleep? And we discussed a few things about accountability, which might be able to help you get through it. On the second segment, we had the Rocky music on. We were talking about Zlatan Ibrahimovic versus Lebron James in a lot of things that opened up other comments, which Florin and Almas and everyone who's on Instagram Live at the moment is talking to me about. Now, here's the thing. I was actually speaking to Florin about this. Now, Florin is someone that played college football with me back in the day, back in the day. And we had people from all sorts of nationalities competing together in a brotherhood in sport. And Florin hails from Nigeria. You know, obviously me being half Iraqi, half Saudi, that's another thing. But we were all in the UK playing for our college team, and we fought together as brothers to be able to try and win every single match. We were very, very competitive. But here's the thing. We had people from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of religious beliefs, even conflicting politics was happening at the time with one of my teammates who came from Israel at the time and used to protest for them and everything. But see, I didn't want something to disrupt my team, and I didn't want to tell anyone that I saw him doing that. But here's the thing. I never treated him differently because the sport brought us together. And that's why, you know, not just because my best friends were from Nigeria or from Ghana or from Jamaica, none of that. It didn't matter what the color of your skin was or what religion you were, but sport brought us together. And see, by telling my teammates that I saw, I was going to say his name, this person protesting against Muslims or against, you know, religion or etc., that would have caused an uproar or maybe some disharmony in the camp. And I never mentioned it, although he saw me see him at this rally. And so my point that I'm making is it's been going on for years. I wonder how things would be now if we were still playing at a high level and I had the same teammates behind me, you know, supporting me and pushing me to try and get the best out of that league. So here's the question. When we were talking about Zlatan saying that you need to stick to sport and not use your platform to raise awareness, but I don't think this is a racist topic. I think it's a topic merely for the fact that LeBron is using his platform to be able to elevate and raise awareness on, you know, important topics, and he mentioned that. And so that's why it's very, very important not to kind of even hint that Zlatan is racist, because he's actually multicultural. He's very intelligent. He has friends from all around the world. His surname also tells you that. You know, so it was very interesting to see how that all kind of balanced itself out. Now, on a lighter note, Team UAE win in the cycling tour, which is fantastic. Really happy to hear that. If I can pronounce the name right, Tadej Pogacar, UAE Team Emirates, has won the third edition of the UAE Tour, the one and only World Tour race in the Middle East, ahead of Adam Yates and Joao Almeida as well, which is, so congratulations to Tadej. I kind of like seeing, you know, people from all around the world represent the UAE, because I think we come here today because of, you know, the blend of culture, all the different nationalities, the fact that the UAE, the locals are so welcoming to us. And also, when you first come here, you're kind of new to everything. You ask questions because probably what you've seen is in the media. I remember Derek, shout out to Derek in London, used to ask me questions about UAE and say, you know, are you allowed to do this, or are you allowed to do that, or can you go out here, or can you go out there? And I'm thinking, yeah, it's not Mars. And then, to be fair, Derek came out here and lived here for a while and absolutely loved it. He loved being out here. And you could see all the different nationalities and all different cultures mixed together. And that was something that I've been telling him since the 90s when I first came to visit the UAE. And so here's where I see it. It's nice to see, Tadic Pogacar win, gold with the UAE team Emirates, and you can tell also by his name. You see, again, it's not a typical UAE name. That's because obviously he's rooting his background from outside. So it's very, very nice to see that happening here. Plenty of good stuff happening in the UAE, and I'm so happy to see that sports are still going on, because you remember at one point we were going through so many different things with lockdown and everything. Then there was suggestion there'll be another one, but I think with everyone being super careful and still respecting social distancing and just being responsible, that this has allowed tournaments like this to still go on. Right, we got some good music coming up for you, and then we're coming up after the break for the final segment, so make sure you stay tuned on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I can't believe we're on segment 4 already. What a show it's been. And if you're just tuning in, Cam, I see you just walked in, then basically you can catch the shows on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud if you like a podcast, or even head over to YouTube, Pulse 95 Radio, and all the episodes are there. We got some great guests from all around the world talking really cool things like mental health, gut health, and a lot of strength and conditioning in there as well. Right, what happened on the show today? Let me tell you. Are you suffering from burnout, overtraining, undereating, overhydrating, or not enough sleep? And if so, we threw some suggestions your way to kind of hold yourself accountable and give yourself enough time, and be kind to yourself, people. It's always nice to just be kind to yourself. Don't be too harsh. We tend to be quite harsh on ourselves. So that was the first segment. The second segment, we spoke about LeBron James versus Zlatan Ibrahimovic. 2 worlds, completely separate worlds. One in basketball, one in football, tackling each other. And the question we were asking is, should athletes use their platform to raise awareness on issues outside of sport? Florian came up with something really cool and said, be like Marcus Rashford. Now, for those that don't know Marcus Rashford, he's done so many incredible things to, the outside of sport, where it came down to poverty, it came down to giving meals to those that need it away from sport. He stood up against Boris Johnson in the UK government, and actually made a difference in community, in society, in so many different factors. So hats off to Marcus Rashford for standing up outside of sport. But that's the question that we were asking today. Should the athletes use their platform to raise awareness on issues outside of sport? It just happens to be 2 global superstars that are discussing about it. And speaking about global superstar, shout out to my cousin Hatem Al-Aqil, who's just joined in on the Instagram live as well. So that was regarding that. We also spoke about the Team UAE winning gold in the cycling tour, which is a huge thing. But when I said the name Tadic Pogacar, you can tell that the UAE is bringing people together to combine in a team sport environment to be able to win, which is fantastic. That's what we do here. Florian is coming out to the UAE, which is great. Just mentioned our Instagram Live, and thought I'd share that with everyone. And Spicy, actually, or Hassan as we know him, mentioned, was it a penalty or not in your opinion? An FA decision will be released on Luke Shaw if they will suspend him or not. Very good question. Excellent stuff. See, here's the thing. When it comes down to sport, you win some, you lose some. That's the obvious thing. However, decisions really make their way. For a long time, Manchester United were being seen as winning a penalty almost every other game, coming up to over 35 penalties in a calendar year, which was insane. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So now looking at it, they don't get one decision. They didn't lose the game. If they had lost the game, I could understand why there would be appeals and everything, but it didn't happen. So I think they'll get one next week. Put it that way. They will get one next week. And yes, Florian, you are going to see me when you come out here. And that is full time on the Halftime Show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Remember, you can catch it every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4 UAE time. And if you did miss the show, hit us up, let us know, and we will share the content with you guys. The YouTube, thanks to Super Mario and Gabby, put it up on there. That's me. I'm out. It's full time, sending you love and blessings, and I will see you back on every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
If you liked this episode of The Halftime Show, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.